Welcome back to episode number 11 of the Football Unfiltered podcast. Joined with me once again is Liam. Liam, mate, how's your week been?
Yes, mate. All good. Busy week, but all good.
Good. It's been actually a shorter period of time since we last spoke, which is nice. We're getting them a little bit more frequently, which is good. But yeah, same as normal. Do you want to run us through our league format, because this is obviously quite an important part now? It's our predictions and our scores. So what's the updated league looking like? Because I don't know just yet.
So currently, after this week's results, the updated league is Cal. You are on 9 points, and I am on 11 points. This week was quite a low one for predictions, to be honest. We didn't do so great. I only got one correct, fully correct. You got only one, I believe, right. So yeah, a bit of a sloppy week from us both, but we'll go over that shortly. Haven't got much news for this week, other than obviously prior to last recording, we spoke about John Eustace potentially getting the job at Derby. I think literally the day after recording, it came through that John Eustace had been appointed as Derby manager. I think this is a massive risk for John Eustace, and we've seen that. I don't think he's realised how big of a challenge it is. After QPR beating him 4-0 on his first game back in charge. Yeah, the squad at Derby is not strong at all. They've lost their last. They haven't won in 11. Things are looking worrying for them, considering they've played as well the most amount of games in the league. They've played 33 games at the moment. With the teams around them, if they start picking up results, it's gonna start looking a bit bleak for Derby. But yeah, I think we'll touch on Derby a bit more throughout the season. But do you think that they've got the capabilities of staying up?
I don't, if I'm being honest, and that is brave, because obviously everyone knows I'm a Plymouth fan, so we're also in exactly the same position. So whether or not they have the quality, I think that means that we don't have the quality either. But I think currently it's a dire state there, and I don't know what John Eustace is really going to bring differently to the table with the current squad and the current way that the club's being run. Not necessarily in a poor shape, but I just don't think they have the strength to stay up at the moment. But again, you never really know with the Championship, do you? Like, it can all go down to the wire, and I think this season is going to prove that it will all go down to that final 2 weekends potentially. Because as you mentioned, Derby are down there. You've then got Cardiff, Portsmouth, Stoke, Plymouth, and Luton all within about 6 points of each other.
Yeah.
So it's very, very close. We've seen it close before, but I think this will be one of the years which is going to be going down in history for any of those fans that support those clubs. But yeah, I don't really know. Like I said last week, just before it was announced, I don't really know why he's done it. I get Blackburn are in a bit of a state, and there's a rumour going around that he was asking for money, he was asking for a new contract, he was asking for this, that, and the other, and wasn't getting it. But then again, why on earth would you join a Derby side at the moment, which is just so out of form? And as you touched on, the QPR result was just that kind of as a statement for me. It was like, you've joined a club and you've lost more. You've lost by a heavier defeat than what they had most of the season to a club who admittedly are very good in QPR, but it's not like they're playing like a Leeds, a Sheffield, a Sunderland, or Burnley. Do you know what I mean? So it was a bit dire from them. But again, it's positive news for me, hopefully, if they keep dropping points.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's going to be, like you said, it's going to be an interesting end to the season for a lot of clubs in the Championship. Actually, just one more bit of news. There's reports that Swansea boss is set to be given the sack, which again, I think this would be a good move. Luke Williams hasn't been, ever since he was linked with the West Brom job, results have really gone poor for Swansea. They suffered a heavy defeat to Stoke at the weekend. They lost 3-1 there. I just can't see things going up with Luke Williams at the moment. And I think what reports I've seen is, depending on the result against Blackburn on the weekend, could determine his future at Swansea. So that would be an interesting one to keep an eye on. But yeah, I think let's go on to the results of the games. And I
Yeah,
think we'll start off in the Premier League with Friday night's game. Brighton versus Chelsea 3-0. Really dominant display. Quite good where I work. I had some people come in after the game, um, and all they said is what a dominant performance it was from Brighton. And from watching the highlights, Chelsea looked like they had nothing going forward. They were flat. Um, but yeah, like Matoma's goal was an absolute screamer. But yeah, look, this is really positive for Brighton. 2 wins on the bounce against Chelsea now. And it looks like they haven't let that 7-0 phase them at all. What are your thoughts on the game?
did you? Oh yeah, I did catch it. Luckily, and Matoma's goal. I think it was Neville, wasn't it, or Redknapp? Not Redknapp, Carragher. Sorry, or Neville. I can't remember which one it was now. Commenting on the game, who just said it was like Messi, like the first touch. That was insane to just pluck the ball from the air. Anyone that plays football knows how difficult that really is, and then to just nestle past your man and slot it home is ridiculous. So yeah, big hats off to him. I think we owe collectively. I can't. I think this was one of the predictions we both got wrong, didn't we? We both said a Chelsea win. Am I correct? Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think we owe them an apology because they really shocked me, if I'm honest. And I think they shocked Enzo. Did you see his interview?
I didn't see Enzo Maresca's.
Did you not? So before the game, he said the 2 days before in his pre-press conference, he was asked by apparently the interviewer, "What do you think of Fabian Holzhuger, the manager?" And he said, "All I
Yeah,
know is that Brighton have let a really good one go in De Zerbi." So like kind of a sly little dig at Fabian, but I don't know how much. Obviously, maybe he's just a big fan of De Zerbi's work. And
yeah,
then he just got
maybe.
silenced 3-0, and then there's a photo circulating on Twitter, which was actually quite funny. It was just slot Enzo being like this, and then they had Fabian in the background just smiling, which was quite a good shot because I hate Chelsea and so do you. So it's actually quite a nice thing to see Brighton, and they're a pretty good club, Brighton, aren't they as well? Got a lot of time for them. But yeah, the game in general was, like I say, I owe Brighton fans a massive apology because they were insane, and I do think they do have that quality now to push forward. They've got an easy run this weekend. They've got Southampton.
Yeah, look, Southampton will. It's easy, but now Southampton have to battle. I know they've been battling for ages, but obviously I can't see them staying up. Um, but if I'm looking at Brighton, currently sat 10th, sit 4 points off 7th, which is Newcastle. For me personally, I don't think this is going to be a season where they push in. They could do it. I don't think they will. I think there's a couple of teams stronger than them, and they just need another transfer window and summer to rebuild a little bit, get a few new additions in. But the squad looks overall, like I think just at the back they need to improve. I think going forward they look really talented. So yeah, but for Chelsea this is quite a worry. Obviously a hit for their Champions League spot. I know they're only 1 point off it, but with the form that the inconsistency of Chelsea at the moment, if they keep playing the way they are, I can't see them finishing in the top 4.
Sorry, I just want to quickly. I was just looking. We obviously we get our stats up before the game and all of this sort of stuff. So Brighton, I was just looking at last tens because I was quite curious to see like what trajectory both clubs are on there. Because for me, they're two clubs which at the moment sit quite like for like. And that's quite a bold statement to put Chelsea and Brighton on the same par. Don't get me wrong, but in the last 10, Chelsea have won 3. One of them being Morecambe. Brighton have only lost 2, both against Forest and Everton. The Everton defeat was probably quite uninspiring, but I mean, Everton's a different subject for a different probably episode at the moment. If they continue the form they're on, they're insane. So you look at that, and if you think if there's another 10 games of the season, 10, 15 games, if they continue that, Chelsea continue this, it's all open, and Brighton could be sitting in a Europa Conference spot potentially by the end of the season if Chelsea do continue the way they're going. And again, I do know that is in that in that that's an FA Cup game and an FA Cup loss in that last 10. But still, it's not form that you want to be proud of, only winning 3 out of your last 10. But yeah, sorry, that was just my only thing. I was just having a quick flick through while you were chatting. But on to our next one. So none of us got that right. None of us got a point at all, did we? Because I said 2-1 Chelsea. You said it's
3-1.
3-1. Fine. So we were both very, very wrong. And then we moved on to the Saturday game, didn't we? The Manchester City versus Newcastle game, which I'm taking some credit for because I think my prediction was a little bit closer than yours. But you can start us off.
Yeah, look, my prediction was not great. I had, what did I have? 2-1 Newcastle. Which again, a bit unfortunate, but City looked so dominant in this game. I expected a lot more from Newcastle. Yes, it was away from home, but I still expected a lot better. I think there's only one person we can talk about to start with, which is Omar Mamouche with a hat-trick within 33 minutes.
So he scored his 33 minutes was his final goal, but he scored his first in the 19th. So if you want to condense it, it was 14 minutes hat-trick.
Again, we spoke about him when he came in. We said that this Mamouche looks an exciting player. But I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it because I think watching him on Saturday, he brings that added firepower to that City front line. I know they need to add a few more players in the summer, but I think this is a really smart signing from City, and I think he's going to really strive at City. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. I mean, we saw Haaland go down off the ball as well, pressing with a knee injury, which looks potentially like MCL, which is not what you want to hear. I haven't seen an update. Not sure, obviously. I'll ask you in a second, maybe if you have. But yeah, back to this whole City thing. Omar Mamouche, I watched him a bit prior. He was Frankfurt, wasn't he? Was Frankfurt?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Frankfurt, wasn't it? I was going to say, I'm definitely... I thought I just had a complete blunder there and was just thinking of a different person. But yeah, no, I've watched him a few times before in the German league. And he was always as talented. Like, he was always pretty talented when I watched him. Don't get me wrong, I did not watch every game. But like when you did catch him, he's like, wow, he's a standout on the pitch. And then he comes to City and it was like, is it going to be like, are they panic buying? We obviously touched on that in the January window. Are they panic buying? Are they spending money because they feel they need to? But I think out of their signings, Omar Mamouche is going to be the best one. He just brings that extra bit of quality. And I think he's going to bring a different element of quality to what Haaland brings. I think they're two different types of player. I get that as well. But I think he's probably what they've been missing a little bit this season. Not because Haaland's been not at his best, because he's still on 19 goals in the Premier League. He's still scored a decent amount in the Champions League. I mean, we saw him score 2 against Real Madrid last week. So it's not like he's not performing. But I think when they need, and the game's going to be going rough, I think he does just have that individual quality to just score a goal. Haaland, I don't think necessarily does. Haaland's not just going to bring you a goal when the team's down and out. He's going to score you 4 when the team's at as high. But I think Mamouche might be able to twist the tail a little bit more for them. And sorry, I will definitely get back to you in a minute. But my last thing about City, just quickly, because I saw it in the news, is that AC Milan aren't happy to spend 4 million on Kyle Walker, yet they want him permanent. I just wanted to quickly ask you just a one word answer. What is your price tag on Kyle Walker if it's not 4 million?
Yeah, I'm not sure on that. He's definitely worth 4 million. It's more depending on what the contract, surely the length of the contract is, because we know Kyle Walker's getting on a bit. It might be that he's wanting a 3-year deal or something along them lines, which City can't do. It's a bit similar to what I don't want to link it back to like a QPR situation, but Jimmy Dunn is he wants a 4-year contract, but we're only willing to give 3 years. So stuff like that, yeah, they probably are willing to spend 4 million on him, depending on what the contract length is. But yeah, it's a weird one. It's a definite weird one.
It's just funny. I just saw it the other day and I was like, AC Milan are not willing to spend. Like, it was the way it was worded, obviously, as the transfer pages do. It was like 4 million, and AC Milan aren't willing to spend 4 million on Kyle Walker. Fall from grace. But yeah, back to the Newcastle City game. What were your thoughts on, obviously we touched on Marmoush now, but you said Newcastle lacklustre. What do you think went like wrong? Obviously it was a 3:00 on a Saturday, so we didn't really catch most of it. But yeah, what were your thoughts?
Well, I managed to watch the highlights of the game, and we spoke about previously on the pod before about how good their attack is, their firepower up top, Gordon, Isak, Murphy, and it was just nothing. Attack wise, awful. Recorded one shot on target throughout the whole game. City absolutely dominated the ball as well. It was just one of them games where Newcastle were never in it. We're never in it. I look at some players. For me, I thought Bruno Guimaraes was really poor. Watching the game, and Isak was quite isolated. But overall, I think Newcastle would just dust themselves down and go again. To be honest, they'd had a good week or so prior to that, so I think this might just be a little blip for them. But again, I quickly just want to touch on City as well. It's great to see James McAtee on the goals, amongst the goals as well. He's a real young talent, and I think if we watch him maybe next season or the season after, he might be a pivotal part of this City team. I really do believe that. But yeah, overall, a dominant City performance, and one that they could definitely take in to this week coming, because they got a massive game at the weekend.
Yeah, definitely. They've got a big game, don't they, Forest? That's the one that we are going to be touching on. But yeah, just quickly, like last little bit about Newcastle. You touched on it. Was been a busy period for them, hasn't it? They obviously had Birmingham, then they had a bit of a gap to the City game. Before that, they had a Carabao Cup semi-final, which they had to win. They then had Premier League games, FA Cup game, Carabao Cup semi-final. So they've not really had that little bit of time. And I get City have also had Champions League included, which kind of replaces the Carabao Cup. But yeah, City are just more adapt to having that many fixtures in such short succession, because they've got better squad depth. They've been there. They've done it for the last 5, 6, 7 seasons. They know how to adapt to that sort of stuff. Yet Newcastle probably still a little bit fresh to having games literally 2 times a week: Thursday, Sunday, Tuesday, Sunday. Do you know what I mean? They're a little bit more adapt in that sense. But yeah, any more on Newcastle? Or do you want to move on to the next game?
No, I've got nothing more to say on this one. I think we should go to the Tottenham versus United game, where Tottenham picked up an important 1-0 win. I don't know if you caught the game, but it was just lacking a lot of quality. It was such a poor watch, actually. James Maddison hitting back at Roy Keane, obviously getting the one, the goal in the 13th minute. What are your thoughts on the? I know it's not too much about the game, but Roy Keane's comments, I don't know if you saw them on the overlap, saying about Maddison being a standout. He's not a standout player really for Spurs, and he's not someone that Spurs players look up to really.
I can agree in terms of performances on the pitch this season. I don't think Maddison's had his best season. I think he'd probably say the same. But I think that's Roy Keane's character. I know that obviously that's kind of his whole persona now, since he played football through it as well. He was always the villain. And now out of football, he is always that guy as well, which is totally fair enough. You need them. And I do really, really rate Roy Keane, and some of the stuff he says about footballers, it does tickle you, doesn't it, really? So I just think I don't think there's any malice in it. I think it's just his character. And I think it was only fair. It was right. Ian Wright, wasn't it, that said, Madders, you're the only one now that can shush Roy Keane. And then obviously he scored. It was a terrible goal as well. But you take those all day long if you're James Maddison, don't you? But then I think the devil's advocate to that is that maybe not on the pitch he's not a leader, but the young players like Mikey Moore, for example, he's my biggest example, because he's probably Spurs' best young prodigy coming through at the moment. He definitely looks up to Maddison. You can tell when you see obviously you probably don't watch them, being like no real ties to them, but like when you watch the behind the scenes at training and stuff like that, they're always together. They've got a lot of like they seem like they have a lot of time for each other. Madison's always celebrating with him when he's done something. Like I think he's a leader off the pitch, and I think that's why Ange, when he first come in, Madison that is, was made part of the vice captain group. So obviously you had Sonny, and then you had Romero and Madison as the leaders of the team. I think that's why. So I do think that honestly, Rory Keane's comments this time were probably a little bit unjust, a little bit unfair. I think it was just trying to get a reaction, which is what he did. And then ultimately, James Madison has had the last laugh there. But yeah, a little bit more on the game, like you say, it was terrible. I don't think it was anything to shout about.
No, you're totally correct on that. It was nothing really to shout about. United looked really flat and poor. Amorim came out and said how disappointed he was after the game, obviously. But it's a massive win for Spurs, and climbing up a little bit. They've gone now above United. Both these sides just shock me every week of how bad they are. I really want to see United go up a bit, because I do think under Amorim they could be a real good side, but Amorim needs so much time. But yeah, I just thought this game was so flat. I haven't really got much to say on it because there wasn't much talking points to the game. But yeah, a really positive result and a much needed result for Ange. And again, we say this all the time with Spurs. Can they build on this now? Because more often than not, they will fall at the next hurdle. So it's how they now react and go again this week, really.
Next hurdle's Ipswich as well, who they did lose to previously at home. Which, sorry, I just remembered as well, we didn't do our predictions for last game. We didn't work out the points from it. What did you predict?
Oh, I predicted 2-1 Newcastle, so you got 1 point.
I was 1 point, fine, so we're up. Sorry, I just totally forgot, I was just remembering. And then for this week, yeah, like you say, I think we're kind of done with this, Spurs. We talk on United, it seems like every week, but that is just because they're just so poor. Like, I don't really know what else you can say about this United squad, is that they just are, they're terrible. Now they've lost Diallo for the rest of the season as well. It's like, I don't know where the spark is going to come from there. I even look, like, watching the game, like, this is just probably a psychological thing, but I was looking at their Patrick Dorgu, the new left wing back, right wing back player. He just looked uninterested. Like, it looks like he's made a mistake. And then Tell, even on his Instagram story after the game, like, in like speech marks, you chose the wrong club, with a laughing face. It's like United are literally a laughing stock for every single footballer under the sun at the moment. And I don't know what's got to change for them, really. And like I said, we touch on it every week. But for me, they need a big revamp in the summer.
Yeah.
But yeah, without any more, should we move on? Because I don't know. I've got no more words about United or Spurs, because they are so bad. But yeah, unless you do, then obviously I'm not gonna cut you short. But you feel free. We'll move on to the Cardiff game if you want.
Yeah, no, got nothing on that. Obviously, prediction wise, that Spurs, you predicted a 2-0 Spurs win. I predicted actually a 2-1 United win, so you got a point there. So that's your 2 points for the week there. Let's move on to Bristol City, Cardiff, Bristol City even. Obviously the 7-a-side derby. Wasn't much to call between the games. Jason Knight got a monster goal 60 minutes in. It was someone that we spoke about before the game as to having a really good season in the middle of the park. But Cardiff fought back in the 90th minute for a 1-1 draw, which is a vital point for Cardiff down there. We said the Bristol City are not great away from home, only picking up 3 wins away from home, and again they couldn't see it out, which obviously it doesn't hamper them too much. They currently sit 8th, 2 points off the playoffs. We spoke about it last week, if they could get the playoffs. If not, the race is so close. But for Cardiff now, this sets them up really nicely. They're currently 3 points off the bottom with a game in hand. So if they can win their game in hand, which we'll go on to tonight, a bit later, it's massive for them. But overall, I think the game was a thoroughly deserved draw for Cardiff. I think they deserved to get something out of the game. They had some really good chances in the game, but likewise did Bristol City. So I do think the draw was a fair result.
Yeah, I agree. I've kind of got a little bit on this game because it kind of meant a lot for both teams, either end of the table. Obviously, Bristol did miss an opportunity to potentially push into the playoffs. Looking at now, obviously they didn't know that 12:30 on Saturday, but if they had picked up an extra 2 points, they would have then been on the same points as the playoff spots. But then just for Cardiff, I think again they just could see out a result. I think they could have probably snatched more. Like you said, it was a fair result, but I just think that they're a team at the moment who we touched on it last week. They've been in the Prem in our lifetime. They're a good team. They're a good squad, but I just think they're not providing enough. And for me, if I'm being honest, I think they're one of the teams that are at the most risk. I think Hull will stay up. I think Stoke will stay up. I think Cardiff at the moment, for me, just look a little bit lackluster in all areas. But again, I'm saying this with Plymouth playing them on Saturday. So if I have just jinxed it and they smash us 4-0, I'm an idiot and I apologise to the Plymouth fans. But my last little bit, obviously, I think you covered this game quite nicely. My last bit it's quite close to you actually. Sinclair Armstrong for me was one player that I didn't talk about last week because I was kind of I didn't want to jinx it. But he's got 3 goals this season, one against Plymouth, in fact. But they signed him for 3 million, didn't they? From you, was it 3 million?
Just under 3 mil,
Just
about
under
2.5 mil. Yeah.
What are obviously you probably know a lot more about him as a player. You've seen him come through the ranks at QPR. What's up with him? Because he's a £3 million striker and he's played nearly every game this season for Bristol, and he don't look like he's providing a lot.
Yeah, look, he's a raw talent. He's still young. I love Sinclair Armstrong. He's got ability. Oh, he's got strength, pace. His height he can use to his advantage. The issue is he's just on the ball. Technically, he's not the greatest of strikers. Look, he only scored, I want to say, 3 or 4 goals for us as well. So he actually scored most of his goals at the start of the season. This season, at Bristol. I do actually really hope it does go well for him, but I thought us getting 2.5 mil for him was an absolute steal. A lot of QPR fans, we talk about it. Armstrong could either be playing in the Champions League in 5 years' time, or he could be in the National League in 5 years' time. You could see him playing at the highest level, but you could also see him playing in non-league football. So he's one of them. I've not been too impressed with him so far, but I think he's more of an impact sub for me. I think bringing him on, it worries defenders a bit more with that pace and power. But yeah, I think first season, get that out of the way and see what happens really next season with him.
Yeah, fair enough. Apologies, I just had to quickly go and turn my light on because I noticed it was getting very dark in my room here and you could barely see me. But yeah, so I think that was kind of covered nicely. This was the game that you hit smack on the head, wasn't it? You said 1-1?
Yeah, I called 1-1 draw. So that's my 4 points there.
Jumped me. So that's where at the beginning you see I've got 9, now you're on 11. So you are 2 points clear in the lead. We'll see how that changes going into this weekend. But the rest of the results both of us obviously we got wrong, but we'll still touch on them because they are the games that we chose for a reason. But one thing I just want to quickly ask you, because I'm flicking through, so we kind of do it in chronological order, don't we? So we do all the Championship games in order, or the Prem games in order,
yeah.
Vice versa. Adam Forshaw, first goal in 9 years. And it's against Plymouth. And then he celebrates in front of Muslik. Are you pulling my plonker or something? What the hell? What? He's claimed it's because his family was sitting above Muslik, which,
yeah,
fair enough, but you couldn't write it, can you? Like, that is, like, what the hell? But, yeah, sorry,
no,
just because I'm flicking past it.
Yeah, no, that's a bit nuts, that was, but he came out and obviously said that his family were there. But Yeah, interesting one. But next game, we've got Millwall versus West Brom. That ended in a 1-1 draw. I think this is a really good result for Millwall, considering their battering against Plymouth in the week prior to this game. West Brom might look at this as a game that they could have really taken advantage on, but then I look at it before this game and I say as well, going to the Den is a tough place to go get a result. So I don't think they'll be too disappointed. They're still sat in that playoff spot. There's a lot of pressure on West Brom. Probably the players are looking at the table a little bit going, they've probably got about 7 or 8 teams breathing down their neck for this one spot, because Blackburn have obviously, with their victory, they've gone a little bit clearer, but not a lot if they take a few defeats. But yeah, overall though, this game was again quite flat. I managed to catch the extended highlights of this game. Joe Bryan goal, which got West Brom back in the game. But again, Millwall at the Den don't play pretty football. It's long ball, but it's effective for them and it works. So a really good point for Millwall. I think West Brom will look at this a bit more disappointed.
I agree. Yeah. I think West Brom probably missed an opportunity there. But as you say, I mean, none of our clubs have gone to the Den and got a point this year, so we know what it's like, and both of us attended the games, so we definitely know what it's like to go there and come away a little bit unhappy. But I think for West Brom, a point on the road again, mentioned that it's probably more of a disappointing result for them, but then a point on the road at a team that was in pretty good form until they went to Home Park. You can't really complain too much, I don't think, if you're them. You now focus on the game this weekend because it's a massive, you've got 3 points basically eyed up in front of you, a home game to Oxford. And I think that's a great opportunity for them to snatch 3 points and get back on the right track. But then for Millwall, I think, because they're playing tonight on the day of recording, aren't they? That's their game in hand. So I think they just have to bounce again. They have to take that point and they have to now flow with it. We mentioned last Wednesday, they went to Home Park, lost 5-1 away from home. It's not great. They're now away to Preston tonight, who sit 15th and 14th, don't they, together? So they're very, very close. I think whoever wins goes above, like one or the other. So it will be an interesting game. And again, if anyone's obviously not going to be watching the Champions League derby tonight between Real Madrid and Man City, then do catch Millwall versus Preston. But I'm going on another tangent of a team that we haven't picked, and we haven't picked them for this week either. But Middlesbrough, is it the Whittaker effect? Because what's going wrong?
We can't keep talking about Plymouth.
It's not. I'm not talking about Plymouth. I'm talking about Middlesbrough.
You are. We'll get on to Middlesbrough when we talk about Middlesbrough.
2 wins in 10. Wow. Whittaker, well done, mate. Okay, on to our next game.
Our last game was, now you stumped me, was Leeds Sunderland, which saw Leeds take a late victory. Obviously, Wilson Isidore scored the opener in the game for Sunderland, a really well taken goal. It was a proper striker's finish. And again, I can't speak highly of Wilson Isidore. I think he's a quality player. And I think this is, like I said previously, it was a great thing for Sunderland to be able to snap him up on a permanent. And then Pascal Struijk. I can never pronounce his name. Struijk.
It's because it's got so many funny letters in, they all want to go next to each other.
But a 90 plus 5 equaliser. Just want to say the fans went absolutely mental. It was brilliant. It was actually brilliant to see the scenes at Ellen Road, because I think we saw how vital this win was for Leeds coming up to their next game, which we'll talk about. But at moments in that game, I really did think that Sunderland were going to win this game. I thought Sunderland played really well and gave Leeds a real good test. But again, this Leeds side don't give up. I can't see them losing at the moment, which is really frustrating. But yeah, great result for Leeds. That puts them back at the top because currently during that game, Sheffield United did go obviously top, but this result puts Leeds back up there with a massive, massive game on Monday night, which we'll go on to.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to ask a quick question. Do you think that Sunderland, that's kind of now solidified Sunderland just as a playoff team? Or do you think they still have a push for top two? Because there's 10 points to the top and 11 points to the team below. So what are your thoughts on that? Because we touched on it quite a lot about the playoffs.
Look, they're currently 8 points behind Sheffield United in second. It's going to be tough. I wouldn't rule them out completely, but obviously, of course, the top four are cemented into that playoffs. But I don't think it would be disappointing. Sunderland would be too disappointed if they don't finish in the automatics. I think they've had a great season. They've really impressed me. Signings they've made need some more time to adjust. But as soon as they adjust, I think Sunderland will be a massive force in that playoff. The playoffs.
I think if they don't make it this year, I think next year will be a season where they'll be looking to potentially even push for automatic as well. But yeah, that was just kind of because we always talk about the playoffs and who's going to make it, who's not, and we predicted who we think is going to go up and all of that sort of stuff. And I know that Sunderland were obviously quite high on your list. You thought that they may still have a good chance, and I definitely do think that they do because we touched on the big game Monday night, and if that does go Leeds' way, Sunderland beat Hull, then there's only 5 point gap. So we never really know. But yeah, so that was kind of the game last night. You didn't catch any, nor did I, unfortunately. So we just saw the highlights, both of us. I was actually watching Barcelona versus Rayo Vallecano, which was quite enjoyable. Something different from my Monday night. But on to this week's fixtures.
Yeah, I think we need to start getting on to our
Rattling on through
fixtures.
this week.
So, we've picked, for our first game in the Premier League, we have gone with Chelsea versus Villa. I don't want to keep thinking that we're picking the same teams constantly, but this is a massive game for the race for European spot, really. Villa currently sit on 38 points, 5 points off Chelsea. We know how good Villa are. Villa at home, at Villa Park. It's not a Villa Park, is it? It's away. Villa are not great away from home this season. I think it's been widely recorded. Whereas Chelsea again, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it is at Villa Park. My God, what am I on about?
You're having a mess. It's early morning when we're filming, so you can.
Yeah, this is very early. This is usually recorded this early. Let's start this again. So Villa, we know how dominant Villa have been at home this season. Chelsea, we know how inconsistent they've been. This is a really interesting game because Villa, I think, they have impressed me at stages this season, but overall this season I've been quite disappointed in them. Obviously, they've had, I think we spoke about it previously, with the added Champions League fixtures. I think it's played a toll on their season this year. But again, the form for Villa in the league at the moment, they've won 1 in 5, which is a bit worrying. But then they go against Chelsea, who haven't been in the greatest of forms themselves. So I think this game is going to be a really interesting one, and I actually struggle to call this game. Obviously, Chelsea are going to be looking at Cole Palmer to control this game and have a massive impact. But yeah, I don't know which way this one's going to go.
Nor do I. I think this is going to be a very, very tough, tight game, isn't it? So we see Villa playing as well. They've got a game this Wednesday. Chelsea obviously don't. So it may mean that Chelsea are a little bit more rested, may not be. So it's a big week for Villa, I think, because they've got 2 very, very difficult games in obviously Liverpool tomorrow night in the fixture, which is taking over from the Carabao Cup final. That's, if anyone's wondering why there's just a Premier League game on tomorrow. And then Chelsea on the weekend, which is obviously a massive, massive game because you look at that league table at the moment. Villa are currently sat a little bit off, not miles away, but a little bit off Chelsea in that Europa League spot. And I think that's probably where Villa will be aiming, considering they have been in the Champions League. They'll probably be aiming for a Europa League spot, even conference at the worst. So I think I don't think they're going to beat Liverpool tomorrow. But this Chelsea game is massive for them because if they do then beat Chelsea, it's ultimately a 6-pointer. They're taking the points away from Chelsea and also gaining 3 of their own. And I don't think, honestly, we touch on it a lot. I don't think Bournemouth necessarily will have the quality to maybe get all the way to the line. So Villa will be looking at these opportunities to be like, we need to beat the teams around us rather than just beating the ones below. But then again, saying that, they had a disappointing result against Ipswich as well. But yeah, a little bit on to Chelsea. I mean, they obviously had a decent win on the weekend. A loss on the weekend against Brighton, and then a loss the week before to Brighton as well. What do you think in their mind they'll be thinking needs to go differently this week? Because obviously they played the same team twice now in a row. They've probably had a little bit of training session just adapting to Brighton. What do you think they'll be doing differently this week to prepare for Villa?
Well, look, one thing for sure is they need to improve attacking wise. In both those games, they look pretty flat going forward. So something's definitely got to change there. I think Cole Palmer's got to get on it a bit more, to be honest, as well. I know you can't just single Cole Palmer out all the time. But I think Chelsea are only good when at the moment, Chelsea only look good going forward when Cole Palmer's really on it. But again, that says a lot about Chelsea that they're relying really on one player to kickstart their attack. I was actually looking at their fixtures after this. They've got this run is quite important for them. They've got 3 games that are really winnable. They go into this game obviously against Villa, and then they've got Southampton on Tuesday night, and then they look at Leicester. So I see these next 3 games as really important for Chelsea because after that they've got Arsenal, and then Tottenham, and then Brentford. So I see these 3 fixtures as really important for Chelsea, and I think we could maybe start to see a little bit as to where they finish after these 3 games. Because if they can get 3 wins on the bounce here, wow, that sets them up nicely. But this Villa game is going to be really tough for them, and they need to be on it. And I think a lot of Chelsea fans will be looking for a reaction after the last 2 results.
Yeah, for sure. And I think March is kind of a big time for every team, isn't it? That kind of where you start to see the league take a little bit more shape and seeing teams that actually are going to be down the bottom or up the top. And like you say, that this run of fixtures for Chelsea, it starts off easy after the Villa game, bear in mind. And then you're into 3 London derbies. You've obviously got Arsenal away, tough. Spurs at home, not so tough. Brentford away, tough. So they're very, very tough fixtures that they've got lined up. So they do need to start picking up some points against those bigger clubs as well. But we're going to go on to our predictions shortly. And again, this is going to be such a tough one to call. But on to the Sunday games. We're going to do both from Sunday, aren't we?
Yeah, we think both the Sunday games are really good. Good games to talk about this week. So we'll start with the 2:00 one. Newcastle versus Forest. Obviously, Newcastle at home will really be looking to bounce back after that disappointing 4-0 loss to City that we just spoke about. I don't want to talk too much on Newcastle because we kind of have spoken a lot about them already this episode, but look, they need to get that front line working again this week. But onto Forest. If this game was at home, I'll be all over Forest. But away from this year, it's been all right. But they've lost 4 games away from home this year. They're a lot stronger at home. But again, Chris Wood's firing the goals still. They got a disappointing 2-1 loss to Fulham last time at the weekend. But yeah, Chris Wood's still firing the goals. I've been so impressed with how well he's done this season. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Forest? I want to talk more on Forest.
Yeah, I think Chris Wood's obviously been amazing as well. They lost obviously the Snapchat derby the other day, which was obviously quite a big one. They were fuming about that, weren't they? Aina couldn't put on his Snapchat story how good he was, which is quite heartbreaking. In fact, because I do love watching a little bit of that, so I had to tune into Alex Iwobi's instead. But yeah, Forest generally on the pitch, I've been so impressed. Nuno and the work he's been doing with that Forest team at the moment, it's just really insane. Because you look actually at the team that if we take the team that fielded even against Fulham, like I know they lost, but you're looking at players that were rejected and sold by the bigger clubs. You've got Aina in there, Chelsea. They were like, nah, you're gone. You've then got Elliot Anderson, Newcastle, you're gone. Nico Williams, Liverpool, nah, you're gone. Gibbs White obviously joined from Wolves, probably not. This is probably an equal step. Then got Alanga from United, nah, mate, you're gone. Hudson-Odoi didn't start, but he's injured still, maybe, I can't remember. But he was then from Chelsea. These players have just come together and they've kind of formed a team. I don't want to say of rejects because that's a terrible thing to say because they're not. They're playing for Nottingham Forest. They're playing for one of the best teams England have seen. But it's not a team that you'd ever pitch on paper to be fighting for a Champions League spot. And I think the work that they're putting in and the confidence and the buzz that comes with that team at the moment is kind of what's dragging them through, if I'm being honest. I don't necessarily think it's pure quality on the pitch because there's no reason why these players would have been released unless they had that pure quality. So I think it is just purely the fact they're just one unity at the moment and they are just dragging through every single game, week after week. They're just fighting for one another. You see them celebrate at the end every game. I absolutely love it. I don't think there's any reason. They celebrate every game like they've won the league. And I like 100%. I love that. That is brilliant. That shows a team that wants to play together. It shows a group of mates, ultimately, for me, that are really enjoying their football at the moment. And Nuno has created that. So hats off to him because, yeah, he's really done something that I don't think anyone would have thought before the season. And for me, I think this is for them in this season. I can't remember what podcast it was. And again, definitely not promoting anyone else. But it was like, if Arsenal win the Carabao Cup and come second, is that a bigger achievement than Forest getting in the Champions League? And somebody agreed with Arsenal, with Arsenal coming second and winning the Carabao Cup as being a better season. And for me personally, Forest getting in the Champions League will be an excellent success for where they are as a club and what Nuno's done. But yeah, I think we could talk about Forest probably forever because this season they are Forest and Bournemouth are the two standouts. Like, I love watching them at the moment.
Yeah, look, I totally agree. I think Forest can definitely keep up this form and finish in the top four. It's going to be a tough end to the season for them, for sure. But look, they're currently 4 points from dropping out of the top four. This game is huge for them. But every game is now going to be huge for them. But I think even if they qualified just for Europe, that's still a fantastic season for them. I do slightly disagree with you on the reject side of things. Because I look at the likes of Elliot Anderson. He could have really strived at Newcastle, but he had to be sold. Newcastle didn't really have a choice. They had to sell a homegrown player. So they got 35 million for him. Hudson-Odoi, I think I get what you mean by like rejects to an extent. But I think Hudson-Odoi obviously had a decent-ish spell at Chelsea, then moved away to Bayer Leverkusen, did okay. But yeah, what I will say is they've really found their feet at Forest, all these players, which is really great to see. And it's great to see Nuno doing so well. I think after his disappointing spell at Spurs, I think a lot of people probably questioned him as a manager. But I definitely really hope the Forest can finish in that top four. And this game, again, it's a close one to call because you look at Newcastle probably coming into this game a bit out of form, but they've got so much quality that can still dominate a game and beat Forest. So it's one of them ones where I think it's going to be a really close game, but a really good game to watch.
I agree. Yeah, definitely. I think we've kind of touched on them nicely, haven't we? Like they're getting the limelight they deserve, and I think it's great. It's great for all football clubs when they are overachieving, let's say, and they are getting that spotlight moment. It's lovely. It's good. It's good to see. But on to the biggest game probably of the whole EFL Premier League weekend. It's City versus Liverpool. Gone are the years where these two are top two. We are seeing a City squad that is struggling before the Newcastle game, let's say, but they're currently sitting fourth against a high-flying Liverpool until they play Plymouth. So, I mean, you look at that; they're kind of both doing opposites, if you know what I mean. Like City are trying to now focus, for me, probably on the cup, the FA Cup, I think, and Liverpool, obviously out of the FA Cup, probably are just focusing now on the league, in terms of English competitions, that is. So yeah, what are your thoughts? You can kick us off. Obviously, we touched on Marmoush. What do you think about Salah's form? Just give us a little bit of insight. I've got a little bit of news for you. So Gakpo and Joe Gomez are both out for the Villa game tomorrow night. That has just been released today. So any other players maybe standing out for you?
Well, again, look, City are lucky in the fact that obviously they're at home, so Liverpool will be travelling to the Etihad. Obviously, you touched on Marmoush. I still think Haaland. Oh no, Haaland's out.
Haaland will probably be out. We're
Haaland
waiting.
probably will be out. Well, there's no actual news on Haaland at the moment. But I think again for Liverpool, Salah is so vital. Luis Diaz, I've been really impressed with him this season. I actually saw the stat about Salah the other day. It links to QPR, but it was like in the 7.5 years that Salah has been at Liverpool, he's scored his 50th penalty at the weekend. In that time, QPR have only been given 31 penalties. So, how have Liverpool been able to get 50 odd penalties?
Paying David Coote, aren't they? Oh wait,
God. But no, that's just a stat that I saw literally this morning as I woke up, and I thought it was a funny little stat. But then I look at this game as well, and it doesn't just involve obviously the City and Liverpool. You look at how well Arsenal have West Ham at home. Mate, it's too early.
Way
We're not
too early
recording
for
this
you.
early again. You look at they've got West Ham on Saturday, so they could go in with the advantage of if Arsenal get those 3 points, they go 4 points behind Liverpool, and they put a bit of pressure on them. Liverpool needing to win. We've seen though how well Liverpool have coped with pressure this year. Arne Slot's got Liverpool playing some really good football, but I don't think Liverpool will be too disheartened if they come away with a draw here, considering City have started to pick up a little bit. Marmoush, obviously, he's off the back of a hat-trick. And I think confidence will start to grow in this City side because they need it. They need this back end of the season to be able to qualify for Champions League. Because I know you say they're focusing on the FA Cup, but they're also focusing massively on finishing that top 4 because it's still really close and it's anyone's game at the moment for that 4th spot and even that 3rd spot. So, yeah, this is a huge game, and I think it's going to be for some reason, I think it's going to be a goal fest.
Yeah, I think you're thinking like a 3-2, aren't you? Either way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think for me, I think in the back of my mind, saying that they're more focused on the FA Cup is more of a given that I think they are just going to qualify for the Champions League. But that's just me of thinking of City of old. I totally agree with you in the fact that it is still anyone's game, that they may not even qualify. But yeah, just quickly on Liverpool, you've touched on it. Lovely that they may get a little bit complacent, but then we've seen them. They're so good under pressure this season. I just don't think they will. I think they'll be able to provide that cutting edge. And then you look at Salah. He's just on form. He's everywhere. He's involved in everything this season, and it's good to see because he's a player that was going under the lime a little bit with Haaland coming in and winning the Golden Boot. And then Salah was just setting off as that like second best type thing. And now I think he's proven everybody wrong. I think he is probably the world's best player at the moment. And that is definitely open to interpretation. But yeah, for me, I think he's very, very good. But I was quite actually disappointed with them on Sunday, Liverpool, against Wolves, especially in the second half. They just did not have that cutting edge to smash Wolves like I thought they would. They had so many chances in the first half. They just did not put that game to bed. Wolves then scored, and it was, whoa, what do we do now? They did obviously see out 2-1, so 3 points is 3 points. But yeah, just wasn't very impressed as what I have been with them this season, let's say.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it'll be interesting to see how they get on tomorrow night at Villa, because they could be going into the game in a completely different mindset, maybe of picking up a loss or picking up another point. So it's going to be very, very... it's going to be different. And then... So... It's going to be a really interesting game, and I do think City could come away with the win here. I really do. I think Liverpool. This could be the start of something. Who knows?
Oh, who knows? Let's have a little look later on in our predictions. But on to the championship, we've got 3 from the championship, don't we? We've got one Saturday,
Yeah,
one
I think
Sunday, one Monday.
let's start rattling through these.
Yeah.
Let's kick things off then with probably. Let's start with the bottom end of the table. So we've obviously picked your boys, Plymouth. We try not to talk about our teams too much, but at the moment, both our teams are kind of in a situation where one's fighting for a playoff spot possibly, and one's looking to stay up. So we look at Argyle versus Cardiff. Now we spoke about Cardiff at the start. Obviously they've been in a bit of a bad run, but this is a massive, massive game for both sides in this relegation fight. How do you think this one's going to go to start with then?
That's opening a box of worms. I don't actually really know at the moment. We've obviously got that game tomorrow night against Luton, which is massive for our season, because I think if we do lose that, it's kind of shown a not real good intent considering they're below us. So it's all dependent on mindset. We could go in with 3 points. We could be bouncing. Cardiff don't have a game, I don't think, now until us. They don't have a midweek game to catch up on. So it will all be down to what really tomorrow night brings. But the game on Saturday, we've got to quickly touch on the reverse fixture. This is a Cardiff side that did beat Plymouth 5-0 under Rooney. So we know the quality that Cardiff have. And as I mentioned, I do think that they're probably under the most amount of threat. But again, so are Plymouth. So it is such a big 6 pointer. I can't really put into words what I'm thinking going into this game, because I think the Saturday one is probably bigger than the Luton one in a sense, because Luton are below us. So we can kind of maybe see them as a little bit of an easier, definitely not, but an easier game. Cardiff are that team which, if we win, we can jump out of relegation. And that would be huge, because the morale in the club would go through the roof. I think if we get out of the bottom 3, even just for a weekend, the fans would be on board. Muslik would be obviously buzzing. The players, the confidence would just be up so much. So I think if we can snatch a win tomorrow night, a first away win of the season, and then beat Cardiff, and we get 6 points from the next 2 games, I'll be in full corner of staying up. And I am in full corner of staying up. Obviously, you're going to be. Until the last day, until I see we're relegated, I'm going to think we're going to stay up. But yeah, what about you? I think like you say, there's not really a load to touch on because we talk on Plymouth quite often, and then Cardiff we touched on just how uninspiring they are.
Yeah, look, obviously Cardiff do have a game in hand, but they play theirs the following week. But they've got, if I look at their fixtures, they've got 2 massive games. They've obviously got you at the weekend, and then they look at Hull City on the Wednesday after. So they're 2 massive games. That's kind of why I wanted to pick Cardiff as well, because this could be. They need to pick up some results from either one of these games, a win from one of these games. But I look at Plymouth, had a blip at the weekend, didn't they? But overall, under Muslik, they've looked a lot stronger. You've looked like you've got a little bit of an identity. Ryan Hardy's bagging goals for fun at the moment, which is good to see.
He's just got injured, unfortunately, for us.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a blow then for Plymouth. But, yeah, I can't. I'd like to think that Plymouth can come away with 3 points in this one. I generally do. Because Cardiff, they haven't been too impressive as of late, but Cardiff again still have a lot of quality going forward. They've got El Ghazi, obviously they've got Chris Willock, Callum Robinson, who scored a hatful of goals this season in the struggling Cardiff side. So Cardiff are definitely not a team to be taken lightly. But yeah, this will be definitely an interesting game.
I agree. Yeah, it's going to be a big one, isn't it? On to the next one.
Yeah, so on to the next one. We've actually picked the little derby. We've picked Watford versus Luton. Now, we actually haven't really touched on both of these sides over the few weeks of talking. So I'll talk about both and then I'll hand over to you. But first of all, Watford started the season off so well and then have had a little blip ever since there was all this speculation about a new manager coming in and cleverly going, which is all a bit weird. But they managed to pick up a vital win against Middlesbrough at the weekend. They currently only sit 3 points off the playoffs. They've got a couple of players, standout players this season. Bayo scored a few goals, which was unexpected, to be honest, because I don't see him as a fantastic player. I really like Imran Loza. I think he's a brilliant midfielder. And obviously they've got the main man, Musa Sissoko, who did score at the weekend. So yeah, really interesting one. And then you look at Luton. At the start of the season, we spoke quite highly of Wickham, didn't we? And obviously they took the Wickham boss, Matt Bloomfield. And ever since, it's just not worked for them. And I don't think you can blame him. I think this has been rotten since Rob Edwards. And I think, to be honest, you've got to blame the Luton board to an extent. I think they should have pulled the trigger maybe on Rob Edwards a bit sooner. They haven't won a game in, I want to say 11 or 12.
It's definitely really, at least 10. At least 10.
It's really, really shocking. And I don't know how Luton are going to get out of this, because they've got some quality players. Colton Morris, who has scored a hatful of goals, but in a lot of games has gone missing. Adebayo, who has been really poor, who had a great season last season in the Premier League and in the Championship the prior season. And he's just been non-existent this season. He's been really poor. And I don't know what is going wrong. They've brought in some players, but it's going to take some time for them to gel. And this is a massive, massive game for Luton now. Obviously, sit bottom on 27 points. In probably the worst form they possibly could be. They need to fight back in this game. And they'll be. They've got to get a reaction. Matt Bloomfield's got to find something out of this side. But yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on this game, but
I think you've kind of summed it up quite nicely. Again, like you've last week and this week, mate, you've been hitting the games on the head. You've been summing them up pretty well. Not saying you don't before, obviously, but yeah, I think like we're looking at both of these teams. Out of their last 10 games each, Watford have only won 2. Luton haven't won a game. Luton's last win come against Derby, I think it was, which was like ages ago now. It feels like an eternity ago. And like you've mentioned, there's not much difference between the side that was in the playoffs 2 seasons ago, in the Prem, and then now bottom of the Championship. There's not a massive. There obviously is differences. But you look at the squad that they have, just reeling off a few of the names. You've mentioned off the 2 strikers. But they've still got like Krul and Kaminsky in goal. They've got players who like, what's his face? Victor Moses, still there. Like, they've got quality players in that side. Admittedly, they've lost Ross Barkley this season, which is only the notable transfer I think that they had outgoing. They obviously let a few go to lower teams like Mpanzu, who was there from League 2 days and National League and all that sort of stuff. But it's not a massive change from the Premier League. And for me, like you say, then maybe the owners kept hold of Rob Edwards for a little bit too long. But it's not like they even had a new manager spark. Like, when a new manager comes in, the new manager bounces, a little bit of stuff that goes on around the club. Nothing's changed. And I think this weekend, obviously it's a derby day, so maybe everything goes out the window in a derby day. We know that. But I think tomorrow night, again, I touch on it because it's Plymouth Luton, but that's such a big game for Luton tomorrow. Like, just as big, obviously it's just as big for both teams, but for Luton, this is a massive opportunity that they can nick 3 points and maybe just get the smallest bit of confidence for the rest of the season, because at the moment it is all doom and gloom, and Mr. Bloom is going to take them down, I think, at the moment, at the current rate. But yeah, then Watford, like you say, they've been a little bit uninspiring. They're only 3 points off the playoffs, but their last 10 has been terrible, hasn't it? They've won 2, beating Derby, who are second, third bottom, and then Middlesbrough just gone. But that's because we're talking about Middlesbrough. Their form of late has not been so good. But what do they need to change now to get back to where they were, because again, this is a team which we were thinking at the start of the season may be in playoffs, like maybe have a good opportunity, and now I can't see them finishing above QPR. On it, if I'm being honest, I think QPR have got more of a chance at finishing in the playoffs than this Watford side do currently, just purely off the fact that I think they're just a little bit lacklustre. Watford, I went and watched them in the Carabao Cup when they beat us 2-0. They were uninspiring then, but we've got them away soon. I think it's March potentially, which I will be going to as well. But until then, we're not going to really know what their season's going to look like. They've got a couple of winnable games, but if they don't pick up the wins, 100%, I think they're out of the playoffs. They'll be sat mid-table again. But yeah, that's all my thoughts over with.
Yeah, look, it's a massive game for both sides, really. But I think let's go on to the Championship game of the week. First versus second, Sheffield United versus Leeds. Wow, what a game this is set up to be. At Bramall Lane, Sheffield United have been excellent at Bramall Lane this year. But then Leeds don't look like they're going to give up and lose at the moment. So this is going to be one hell of a game. There's only 2 points separate them at the moment. I don't know how I see this one going. There's some quality players on both sides. You've got Castelvo, Hamer, you've got Diaz, Ben Brereton Diaz for Sheffield United, but then I look at Leeds, Solomon, who's in fine form at the moment. They've just there's so much quality in both sides in all areas, and I think these are two sides that are probably destined to be going up. What are your thoughts on this game, and how do you think this will go?
I think if we're talking about Monday nights, I think Leeds have obviously got a little bit more expectation just because of their win last night. But like I say, they've both got quality. They are probably the two best teams in the league. Everyone talks about Burnley at the moment. They've not conceded a goal in X amount of time. They've kept this amount of team sheet, blah, 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 blah. But they're also drawing a couple more games. Well, not a couple more, a lot more than what Leeds and Sheffield United are doing. And that 2 points that you get for a win in comparison to a draw is massive when you're at the top of the table. Draws are all right when you're down the bottom of the table because you can just scrape and pick up points along the road. But when you're fighting to be in the Premier League, arguably the best league in the world, you have to pick up wins in the Championship. And for me, Burnley just aren't necessarily doing enough. So I think that, like you say, these two destined for the Prem, I think you're right at the moment. And I think this game, for me, this is a very, very, very bold statement considering we are only in February. Whoever wins this game, and if they draw, then that's boring. Whoever wins this game, I think, will go on to be champion, honestly. Because you look at both the runs, if I just quickly get up the Sheffield United run, they've got Leeds. They do then have you, obviously, so I'm not going to badmouth QPR. But they've got you, which they'll probably call a winnable game. They've got Preston at home, Bristol City at home, Wednesday, the Sheffield Derby. So those are 5 games that they could probably look at winning. Then you look at Leeds. You then flip the narrative to Leeds, who have then got Sheffield. They've got West Brom, tough game. Then they've got Portsmouth, Millwall, QPR, Swansea, teams that are probably winnable for Leeds. So there's 2 winnable runs for both of them after the game, if you know what I mean. So it's whoever can pick up and have that final edge in this Monday night fixture for me.
Yeah, this is definitely what I'll be tuning in for.
100%.
This is going to be a brilliant game. But I think now to round off, I think let's
prediction time.
Do prediction time. I'll keep track.
Okay, you. I'll go first again as normal, so you can write mine down.
Yeah, do it.
Sweet. All right. So we're starting off with the Villa Chelsea game. I'm going to go 2-1 Villa. I just think they have an edge.
Okay.
And I just think Chelsea have looked a little bit uninspiring again. Love that word today. It's a good word. And then we move on to Sunday, both the Sunday fixtures. I'm going to go, this is a tough one. 1-0 Newcastle Forest.
Nice.
And then 3-1 Liverpool.
Wow.
Yeah, we're not here to mess around. Oh, that means I've got to predict a Plymouth result. Oh, no. Oh, no. What's going on here? All right, so Got that written down? We're ready to go?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
Plymouth, Cardiff. 2-0 Plymouth. Never going to predict us to lose. 2-0 Plymouth. Up the Green Army.
Next.
Watford, Luton. 2-0 Watford.
Yep.
And then the last but not least, Sheffield United versus Leeds. 2-1 Leeds.
Wow.
Okay,
I think
over to you, mate.
Yeah, I think our predictions are going to be a little bit different, which is good.
Don't predict Cardiff to win.
No, but this could be interesting for the league already. If they're both going to be pretty different. So here we go then. So first game for me, I'm going to go with a 2-1 Chelsea win.
Fair
Then
enough.
for Newcastle Forest, I'm going to go for 3-1 Newcastle win.
Oh, that's not a bad shout. Not a bad shout.
I know it's a little bit bold. City versus Liverpool. I'm going for a 2-1 City win.
You said it was going to have goals in earlier. I thought you were going to go big.
No, but I'm feeling a City win.
Yeah, and then Championship.
I'm going to go for a 2-0 Plymouth win.
Yes, good lad. That's what I love to hear. Okay.
I'm now going to go a bit more rogue.
Luton, aren't you?
I'm going to go for a 2-1 Luton win. I think you never know after what happens in the week, but Luton could pick up a bit of a run. They've got to find something soon.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in the Leeds. Sheffield United Leeds. Yeah.
Boo. Yeah, fine. Fair enough. So it is 11-9 in the league at the moment. And that does round off episode number 11 of the Football Unfiltered podcast, doesn't it? So anything from you, Liam, before I plug some socials and complain to you for not doing anything else on the socials?
Nothing from me, mate.
Nothing. Yeah, don't take your headphones off. I need you still here for a minute. You still haven't done anything on the socials, so we're just waiting for Liam. We're just waiting for Liam to get involved and actually start pulling his weight around here. But we are also on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Find us on YouTube and Spotify for the episodes. YouTube is got our faces. Spotify is for those that want to listen on the go. And then we have, on Instagram, we post every single episode on there as well. So just drop us a follow. We don't really do much on Instagram apart from let you know when the new episodes are coming out. And then TikTok's where we're most active. Not really this week. We've had quite a quiet week on there. But we will be getting more onto there shortly when Liam pulls his finger out. And Twitter, we kind of just post as and when. I'm waiting for Liam as well. We need to work out what we're doing on the Twitter. To be fair, that's kind of both of us. But yeah, the TikTok's where we want to be pushing because that's where we're going to get a good audience from. So if you are interested, it's football.unfiltered on both Instagram and TikTok. And yeah, that's us. Mate, it's been a pleasure. It's been a good day, good Tuesday. And we'll get this out Friday for you all to enjoy. And yeah, stay tuned for more to come. Thank you.
Perfect.